We all know Medusa as one of the most vicious and dreadful monsters of Greek mythology. She was one of a trio of Gorgon sisters, famed for her crown of snake-like hair and her fatal gaze, which turned anyone who dared look into her eyes into cold, hard stone. But believe it or not, Medusa wasn't always the terrifying monster we know her as. In fact, she was nothing like her Gorgon sisters. Stheno and Euryale were born as monsters, but Medusa was an exception in the family of the sea gods, Phorkys and Ceto, her parents. Medusa was born as a mortal woman with the most beautiful face and luscious locks of hair. She was so alluring that she had many suitors, but in the fate of events, Medusa would have the misfortune of being turned into the most hideous of all her family. So, where does Medusa's story begin? Well, legend has it that once Medusa was a beautiful, avowed priestess of the goddess of wisdom and knowledge, Athena. Athena was one of the only 3 virgin goddesses, and Medusa took a vow of celibacy in devotion to her and lived her life serving the goddess. Her name, Medusa, in fact, comes from the ancient Greek word for guardian. While serving Athena, due to her stunning beauty, many among the mortals and gods would take notice of Medusa. But Medusa never took part in any of the attention nor entertained anyone. However, it was one day while Medusa was praying in the temple of Athena, Poseidon, the god of the seas, took notice of her. Poseidon was enamored by Medusa's beauty and seduced her, and Medusa, giving in to the god of the seas, returned the same feelings. And it happened so that Poseidon couldn't resist the temptation and took advantage of Medusa in the temple of Athena. And it was when Athena discovered the illicit affair. She was enraged and immediately cursed Medusa, taking away her beauty and transforming her enchanting hair into a coil of serpents and making her face so hideous that anyone who would look at her would turn to stone. And so, Medusa's life was changed forever. She could no longer be amongst her people, nor did people want to be with her in fear of the consequences. But Medusa would not have the fate of being left alone. Being the deadly mystical creature she was, Medusa's head was sought after by King Polydectes. And for this, he ordered the mighty warrior, the hero Perseus. Perseus was the son of Danae, daughter of Acrisius, the king of Argos, and Zeus. Zeus had impregnated Danae in the form of a shower of gold after her father had locked her away upon learning from an oracle that he would be killed by his grandson. Acrisius feared the child, but wanted to avoid Zeus's wrath, so instead of taking Perseus's life, he sent the baby and Danae out to sea in a wooden chest. It was then that Dictys of the island of Seriphus rescued the two, and he raised Perseus like his own son. However, on the island of Seriphus, there were others close by who weren't so fond of the boy. Unknown to Perseus, the king Polydectes, the brother of Dictys, had a motive of his own. Polydectes desired Perseus's mother and wanted to get rid of him, who was not in favor of the relationship. Such a mission would have to be equivalent, so he set up Perseus to pursue the head of Medusa and expected that he would never return to Seriphus, and thus would never become an obstacle for him in marrying his mother or assuming the throne. Nonetheless, Perseus accepts the request and sets out on his quest to find Medusa and bring back her head. As Perseus was the son of Zeus, he was aided by the gods. He received the cap of invincibility from Hades, a pair of winged sandals from Hermes, a sword from Hephaestus, and a reflective bronze shield from Athena. When Perseus finds Medusa, he uses the shield given by Athena, which was polished and reflective, to sneak up behind Medusa without looking into her eyes. And it was then he closed in on her and struck her head. But it was immediately as Medusa's head collapsed to the ground, the winged horse Pegasus and his twin brother Chrysaor sprung out from the stump of her bloody neck. Unbeknownst to many, during Medusa's love affair with Poseidon, she had become pregnant, and Pegasus and Chrysaor were the sons who were born when Perseus decapitated her. Pegasus was an immortal winged horse who could fly and create streams of water just by striking his hooves. And Chrysaor was a young man, often depicted as a giant, who bore a golden sword. As Perseus stared at the creatures that took form in front of him, all of a sudden, the Gorgon sisters were awoken by the noise. And realizing Medusa was no more, they began chasing Perseus to avenge her death. But the hero Perseus escaped by using the Cape of Invincibility. Some versions of the myth say he flew away with Hermes' sandals, or on Pegasus, setting course for Seriphus, of course, with the head of Medusa safely kept in a satchel. Strangely enough, however, Medusa's story doesn't end here. On Perseus' way back to Seriphus, while flying over Libya, drops of Medusa's blood fell to the ground and instantly turned into snakes. And it is said because of this, to this day, Libya is abound with serpents. During this journey, Perseus also encounters the Titan Atlas. When Perseus requests Atlas for a place to rest for a short while, Atlas refuses him. Now knowing that Perseus would not be able to defeat him with brute force alone, he takes out Medusa's head, and Atlas was at once turned into a mountain. On his way, Perseus also encounters Andromeda, the daughter of the Ethiopian king Cepheus, and his wife Cassiopeia. Using Medusa's head, Perseus succeeds in rescuing the princess, who was being sacrificed to Cetus, a sea monster sent by Poseidon to punish Cassiopeia for boasting that her daughter was more beautiful than the Nereids. And alas, Perseus also uses Medusa's petrifying power on Phineus, Andromeda's uncle, whom she was betrothed to, Protus, the usurper of the throne of Argos, and finally, the last of those to suffer from the vicious power of Medusa was Polydectes himself. When Perseus arrives in Seriphus, he uses Medusa's head to turn Polydectes and the vicious islanders into stone. And thus, the island of Seriphus was well known long after for its numerous rocks. And when all was done, Perseus gave Medusa's head to his benefactor, Athena, as a votive gift. The goddess sent it to Zeus's Aegis as the Gorgonion. She also collected some of the remaining blood and gave most of it to Asclepius, who used the blood from Medusa's left side to take people's lives, and the blood from her right side to raise people from the dead. The rest of Medusa's blood was contained in a vial, 2 drops, which Athena gave to her adopted son, Erycthonius. One of these 2 drops was said to be a cure-all, and the other was a deadly poison. And alas, protector of heroes, Athena put aside in a bronze jar a lock of Medusa's hair for Heracles, who subsequently gave it to Cepheus' daughter, Sterope, to use to protect her hometown Tegea. Supposedly, even though it didn't have the power of Medusa's gaze, the lock could still cast terror into any enemy unfortunate enough to even accidentally behold it. And so was the story of Medusa. What do you think? Was she really a villain or a victim? Comment down in the section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.